for Human Services. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me, which is not quite true, but we'll add people. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Sindy Rivera.
Yes.
Claudia Valle.
Yes.
Okay. Athalyn Sweeney.
Yes.
Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Ann
Yes.
and Taylor. Yeah. Just give us a thumbs up, Taylor. Okay. Video confirmation. This is the introduction to a remote meeting. We don't have any speakers present yet. So good evening. This open meeting of the Council for Human Services is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting of the Council for Human Services, the Council for Human Services is convening by video conference via Zoom app, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to share your screen, to share screen on your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Means I should probably slow down. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment. We're not doing public comment, I don't think, tonight. So, finally, each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. I don't anticipate us having any votes, but we never know. Hi, welcome everyone. Taylor, have we figured anything out? Okay, so this is going to be challenging.
Not me, and I'll use the chat function.
Okay, I can sort of hear you. Do you have a volume setting?
I have it turned up all the way. I just checked the settings, and it was working perfectly.
Now you're gone again. Okay, so if I could please have a motion to approve the agenda. So just unmute yourself, Athalyn.
I make a motion.
Okay, and a second?
A second.
Okay, so all those in favor by roll call vote. Claudia?
Yes.
Sindy?
Yes.
Athalyn?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries unanimously. And then we need a motion to approve the minutes from July 16th.
Yeah,
Anybody?
I can make a motion.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. And by roll call vote, Claudia,
Yes.
Sindy,
Yes.
Athalyn,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, so let me, Taylor, can you walk me through the agenda? I was not able to print it out. Can you just keep?
Can you hear her? I can tell you what it is.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine, that's great. So the first item we're gonna take on the agenda tonight, I'm sorry, I'm a little discombobulated today, is a document that Rachel sent, Rachel Day, Assistant Town Manager, who is responsible for coordinating the town's racial equity work, has sent us a document that is basically summarizes what the town of Nantucket hopes the Council for Human Services, the things, the ways we might participate in the racial equity work of the town. And I'm just going to read through her document, and she was going to be here this evening and was unable to join us at the last minute. So, so there's two items that Rachel's interested in having this committee take up in racial equity work. The first is reviewing the request for proposals. So the town is in the process of writing a request for proposals for diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic planning work. And they have a draft RFP that we will be sending to you in full after this meeting. And they are getting input from various parts of town government, employees, et cetera. And they wanted this group to weigh in on it as well. So let me just read this document from Rachel. So the select board has requested that different individuals and groups, including the Council for Human Services, review the draft request for proposals that has been developed. An RFP is a document that announces and outlines specific details about a project for contractors to respond to. It outlines the goals of a project as well as clear deliverables. It allows for the town to receive responses to the project that they are looking to have completed, and based on the criteria developed by the town, and then in parentheses, what matters most in a vendor contractor to the town, wait a minute, what matters most in a vendor to the town to be the best vendor for the project. Each responding vendor is ranked and the best candidate is chosen. Unlike an invitation for bids or other sought after, oh wow, this is such town language. We'll talk about this. Or other sought after vendor for projects, you do not award the contract to do the project with the vendor that submitted the lowest cost. You choose the one who best meets the project you are looking to have done. So I'm going to say that in layman's terms, which is the town puts out this pretty complicated set of criteria based, and in other words, what they want in the contract, the work they want done, the criteria by which they will evaluate one proposal from another, and then a committee sits down, reviews the ones that are submitted that are complete, ranks them based on those criteria, and then selects a contractor to do the work. So in this case, it is about setting up and doing diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic planning for the town of Nantucket. So, so then there's a review group for the proposals that come in, and as I said, and use the criteria. So what can the Council for Human Services do? This is the important piece for us. Review the project details, goals, and deliverables to ensure that nothing is missing. It is clear what we are looking to have accomplished and to ensure the methods listed to gather information make sense. In other words, does it just read? Does it make sense? Review the comparative criteria on how to choose the best vendor to complete the work we're asking for. Make a suggestion on who should be on the committee that reviews the proposals. Often this committee is made up of the department head of the department the project falls under, a member of the finance department, a member of the town administration, one of the assistant town managers typically, and other key individuals who may be in direct contact with the vendor the vendor that's selected. Usually these committees are approximately 5 people. The related sections mentioned above are highlighted in blue in the draft RFP document. Okay, so we did not send out the draft RFP document ahead of this meeting because we didn't want it to feel overwhelming to everybody. We wanted to,
It would feel overwhelming.
and it would feel overwhelming, as Taylor said. So I'm not sure that that makes this more confusing or less confusing that you haven't seen the document up front. But so basically what we are being asked to do as individuals is to run through the RFP and see if anything from our individual perspectives and our place in town and as members of this board, whether anything feels like it's missing. And are there additional suggestions we can add? So that's sort of the first thing. And what we're going to ask you to do is take time this week. We'll send it to you and then respond by email to Taylor, any suggestions that you have for things that are missing or anything that looks like it's not clear or it doesn't make sense. And I think we'll be looking at it with fresh eyes. They've been buried in it for weeks trying to create this. So I think Rachel's really interested in having us as a fresh set of eyes and people sort of outside the process to take a peek at it. And then the next one is suggesting who might be on the committee that reviews the proposals. Now, typically it's, as she explained it to me, it's a very small group and it's very sort of the same set of people every time. But given the fact that this is such a critical project for the town that will impact diversity, equity, inclusion, they recognize that the folks who are typically participate in the evaluation of these proposals is not a very diverse group. And so what Rachel's asking is, are there suggestions as to who might be officially appointed to that committee and whether it's someone from this group or a recommendation from somewhere else in the community is what she's looking for. The amount of time required for that process is quite significant. It's probably, depending on how many vendors respond, it could be a number of hours to review each proposal. And those, again, are public meetings, and they will be a series of meetings, similar really to the contract review process that we'll be talking about a little bit later in our meeting tonight. So that might help us understand that. So Taylor, we're not being expected to make any decisions tonight.
No.
But I would like to ask if anybody has any thoughts. I think particularly on this latter piece about who might serve on the review committee. And does anyone on this board have anything they'd like to say at this point about that? Or we can think about it and talk about it next meeting too. Athalyn?
Can you say a little bit about what that commitment looks like?
My understanding, it is going to be a number of hours per proposal, and we can't know whether there'll be 5 proposals or 10 proposals. So it's sort of unknown what the volume of time. It will likely be during the day because it involves a lot of town staff, and probably not going to do evening meetings for that. Would you guess, Taylor?
Yeah, I hope you can hear me. It will very much be during business hours, and it is quite a time commitment. Like Brooke said, it's very similar to the contract review committee, and we have to follow procurement. So much like with, open meeting law, there's a lot of rules and regulations that have to get covered. So it is pretty lengthy.
Okay, so if you didn't catch that, it is during business hours with town staff, and there's a very strict set of rules on how it gets done. For instance, the packages all have to be opened at the same time. They're at an open meeting. That literally the envelopes are opened in a public meeting. So that's just one example of all the rules and regulations around it. So does anyone else have any thoughts on the subject? Okay, so hearing none, I think what we'll do is let everybody take in the RFP in the next few days. It will come to you by email, and sort of wrap your head around it, see what you think, and respond to Taylor by email if you have any thoughts or suggestions. Athalyn?
If anybody has questions about the structure or the statements in the RFP, would they contact Taylor to ask those questions?
Yes, so our feedback will go through Taylor, through to Rachel. So Sindy?
So if that's the case, if that's the schedule and those are the rules,
You're frozen.
can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yep.
Okay, I was just asking if that's the case.
Hey, Sindy, turn off your video a sec. Sometimes that helps us hear you by not using as much internet.
Well, yeah, I just think that it would be difficult for anyone who works to be part of that group, and in that comes anyone. I mean, most of the diverse community would be working, which then ends up being non-diverse. So
Right.
I don't know. It just kind of contradicts each other there. Like, that's a great goal, but you're also not giving any way for that to be accomplished.
I don't disagree with you.
So it's kind of like, meh.
And that will be part of our minutes. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. I think we have a long way to go, and that's a little bit of a chicken and an egg, right? We need to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that we have to go through the old process to hire the people to do the work to make it more diverse, equitable, and inclusive.
Yeah.
So I absolutely hear you. Absolutely hear you. Claudia?
Yes, I do have a question. We have a date when we have to have, the proposal. When is the deadline for that?
So I think what we were going to do is ask for feedback by the end of this week. So I would say, let's say 5 p.m. on Friday.
Okay.
And that way Taylor will have some time to compile it.
Right. Thank you.
No, can't hear you. You know what, Taylor? Are we allowed to do anything? No, that won't work. Okay, she's gonna chat. Okay, so she's gonna send it out immediately after this. For us to have it by email tonight. So,
So I have a question.
yep, sure.
Is there any flexibility to that process that Taylor is speaking to as far as selecting the company or whomever is going to do that for the town, or this process is set for, there's no flexibility, so there is no room anywhere? So then
No,
there's
yeah, sorry.
no, so then there's no way to accomplish. I'm just trying to, how do we do that? I mean,
Well, I mean, one recommendation is that those meetings don't take place during business hours
right.
in the future, right? That's a possibility, as one example, right? In the way that we found a meeting time that's 7 p.m.
Yeah. One more
And-
question.
Sure.
So are they trying to hire a consultant or some sort of group that is going to come evaluate the town and then say you have to do this? So then I'm guessing that group, whomever the consultants are, hopefully are diverse. There's my hope.
Yeah, and there may be, I have not read the RFP in detail, but there may be, Taylor, do you know if there's any criteria about ownership of the firm, whether there's anything in there? Oh, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't ask you questions. This is challenging. So in fact, the fact that they are even considering inviting other people to be in the room for that process is already a shift from the way it's normally done. So stepwise, but that is a good suggestion to add to the feedback, is minority-owned firms given some priority, if that's possible. The procurement process is very rigidly structured by the state of Massachusetts in order to avoid conflict of interest and corruption. And so it's very rigidly set up and consistent from town to town. So that's why there's even less flexibility than normal. Athalyn?
Brooke, if I recall from our discussion, Rachel had described a process by which, and I can't remember if this is going to be for the employee or for the company. It's for the employee, I believe, and it's, I think, important for the group to know where they're going to be looking at any applications blind to any names, any identifying information about the person. It's going to be their education, it's going to be their experience, those kinds of things. But I think that's for the position. But I did like that they were looking at that as a way to go about looking at one of the positions.
Yes. So in addition to the RFP for the consultant, there is also currently posted a job opening for a new DEI director for the town. And they are taking applications for that position until September 10th, I believe. And that's the position Athalyn is talking about, that they are going to review the applications and decide who to interview without names and identifying information. So it'll be credentials only. So, which is an interesting approach. Though I could make an argument that having someone of color would actually be advantageous. But ultimately, they will interview people either by Zoom or in person. So that will become apparent at some point. But I guess the initial screening of applications will be done blind. So, okay. Any other questions on this topic at the moment? Okay, Taylor, I'm not able to open our agenda for some reason. Anne, could you just read me what's next on the agenda?
Dorothy Hertz, the mission and functions of the contract review committee.
Okay. Oh, nope, sorry, I'm bouncing around. We have one more thing that we're supposed to be doing. Wow. The other big piece of, she added a third item too. So the second thing is recommendation of a DEI advisory board, which is let me just read what Rachel wrote. The select board is looking for guidance on how to develop a diversity, equity, inclusion advisory board. This may be a committee group like a task force that is more informal, comma, a subset of the Council for Human Services like the Contract Review Committee, which is more of a formal board, meaning it must post meetings and follow open meeting law guidelines, or an entirely new board that is developed and appointed by the select board, a formal board like Council for Human Services. So what they would like us to consider is to draft a recommendation to the select board on the following items. A mission for said advisory board, as well as key tasks for which they are responsible that will be reviewed by the select board for final approval. Draft the membership makeup of this board, representatives from other committees such as school, Council for Human Services, members of the community, etc., and the number of individuals that should be on the board. And how is membership determined? Appointed by the select board after applying, or if informal, is there any application process at all? And then she had sent us a sample of how the senior center committee was made up, and that as an example of what they're looking to develop. So I thought tonight perhaps the best place for us to start would be to start brainstorming about what segments of the community do you think it would make sense to have on a task force or advisory board? So what voices from the community in terms of segments of the community should work together on this community effort toward diversity, equity, and inclusion? Does my question make sense to you guys?
Yes.
And if you guys have any thoughts on that. Sindy?
I think that instead of appointing by the board, I mean, there should be some sort of process, but I think it would be important to look at the current leaders in our communities and then approach them first instead of trying to find other people, because there are already a lot of people in this community doing work outside of town government, and we need them to be in it. And they already have a following, they already know the problems, they are a minority, they are people of color, and they should be the ones. So that would be my recommendation. If not them, I feel like they would be a really good source, like as to where to go.
Okay. Claudia?
No, I'm totally agree what Cindy's saying right now.
So if we were going to recommend a makeup of a board or advisory board, I think of it in terms of like we have the schools, we have town government, we have businesses, we have faith communities. So that's how I conceptualize in my head, is sort of like finding representatives from each of these segments of the community to work together and in thinking of that, what am I missing in that list?
Unrepresented people. Minorities, they're unrepresented and they're not included in any of those groups. Like,
So at large, so an at-large member is just someone from the community, right? So we would have a group of at-large seats that the idea would be that they would be, those seats would be taken by underrepresented segments of the community. Is that what?
I think, sorry, I'm taking over this conversation, but I think that all those groups you're talking about, that makes sense. And then I always go to all this like under groups. They don't go to those meetings. They're not, so they're looking to be represented. They perhaps don't know how to get there, but that's why I keep thinking of the leaders of those little groups. And sometimes those people are, which I know we don't want to get like that, but they sometimes could be a religious group that gets together in a tiny little house. Or sometimes is, I don't know, a group of landscapers that are all immigrants and all have businesses. Like, it's almost like getting to the underbelly a little bit more than to the same groups that we're used to. That's what I keep thinking, but I just don't know how to get there, but that's what I'm thinking.
Right. And again, we have the question of, will people come to meetings? You know, if it's meetings, you know, availability and time and all of those questions keep circling back around, right? To Athalyn?
I think we also have to consider, because I hear a lot of this happening as we're having discussions about appointing people and having people on, is not overdoing it for people who are already giving so much that they don't have the time to give of themselves more. So we have to be cautious that when we're approaching people, we're thinking of people who may have the time to give and have the energy to give towards the group.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because a lot of, when I'm thinking like people who are connected with the school or the school committee and more committees, they're already giving of themselves. So how do we maybe talk to those people who are already doing something for the town and saying, who do they think in their world is the next person behind them that they see coming up and would want to give in that way? You know, there may be diversity on the school committee. And if there is, can we talk to those people and say, who would you think of when?
Mm-hmm. Claudia, did you have something to add? Okay. So the discussions around these things go around in circles because it's new, right? It doesn't exist. So how do you create it, right? So so what was created for the senior center committee, it was, you know, members from existing committees already. It was all members of existing committees, and we're trying to do what you all are saying is, you know, trying to do something really different from the way it's always been done. And maybe another question we should ask ourselves is, what is the purpose of this group? Like, what is the goal of this group? And maybe that helps figure out who needs to be on it too. It's sort of like this circular logic of, we think about who, but then what? And who can accomplish the what? Who's best suited to accomplish the what? So what is the thing that this task force or advisory group might hope to accomplish? Athalyn?
Sorry, I'm trying to pick up my pen. Let me do that first. So I have a different question. How did the idea, what seeds were sown that created the idea for this group to begin with? Because I think that gives us information about what this group should be doing.
So, you know, I'm trying to remember what came out of the select board meeting in particular. I think the goal is in some ways a couple of things: helping guide the select board in their, and also giving them a bridge to the community in terms of what it is people want, what change needs to happen, and how to go about it. So it's a communication, and then the how does it happen. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I don't want to drive the conversation too much, but I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. So there's sort of like there's the government work, right? What are the structures and systems that our government needs to change to function better and to serve everybody in the community more equally than it does now? And also to improve diversity within the employment ranks, within the management, you know, the upper levels in senior positions in government, boards and committees, all of that, right? So there's the government piece. And then there's all these other sectors of town that if we're going to affect real change across the community, the change has to happen across the board. So it's about how do all these different sectors come together to collaborate and share ideas and work together to foster change across the community beyond the government, right? And so, and in doing that work together as a task force, they're generating ideas that can come back through the representatives on that task force who are in the government back to the government. So it's sort of this circular process of facilitating change across the community. And yet, hang on. Right, okay. Taylor's pointing out that Rachel brought up, should there be a community forum of sorts? And yeah, Athalyn?
This may just be me, but I feel like in a way we're putting the cart before the horse. We've got these consultants coming in, and we can go forward and start all this stuff, and the consultants could come in and be like, oh no, why'd you do that? I feel as though if we are having professionals come in, those are the people we'd be looking to guide us. Like, we still have a say and have some ideas under the structure that they give us, but they've done this over and over again. So it just seems like we're reinventing the wheel, and here where the town is going to be paying a lot of money probably to have these people come in and really help us create what it needs to be in its best form.
I hear you. Anybody else?
So can we make that suggestion as to actually wait? Because
Yes.
I thought a lot about the same things you think about, Brooke, and I'm also going in circles because it is really it's hard, it's difficult.
Yeah.
You know, our community is so diverse, and people are from so many different, it's just, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I know there, you know, if they're hiring a DEI officer, director in the next couple of months, and this RFP is going to happen, I wonder whether, in a sense, the select board is wanting some action to feel like they're doing something, when waiting may be the best answer. Athalyn, did you?
Yeah, I just was going to say, I think, I'm sure there's some pressure for that because our community has spoken up in some ways to say they want to see change. However, if you push it and you end up, not on purpose, but inadvertently getting it wrong, it can do more damage than waiting and looking at the RFP and making suggestions around the RFP for maybe a short-term plan to help us get it started in a right way, saying then we'll get more information and we'll grow it from there, and more as we go and grow it from there, and do it properly and well so that people know exactly what's going on, why we're doing what we're doing. We can back up why we're doing what we're doing. And it just, I don't know, it just flows in my mind a lot better.
I think that's a great suggestion.
And I think doing something that educates the public on the process so they're not out there thinking, what are they doing and why is it taking so long and what's happening, that we actually keep them educated along the way so that they understand why the decisions are getting made and why things aren't happening on a dime, so that they, you know, it waylays some of that concern.
Mm-hmm. DEI director, RFP, and including this question in the RFP, the work of the RFP.
Mm-hmm.
What task force, advisory board, blah, 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 should be created to be the most effective?
And how is it best built? I'm sure they've done it in different communities where it's failed in some and they've done really well in others, and using that model, that's best practice model in communities, seems like a good idea.
I love that. Okay. Okay, so I think that we will definitely supply that feedback. And I would say, as you respond to the RFP, to Taylor, the more we reiterate that, and but we can definitely give a sense of the meeting back to Rachel that this is, if I may say, and you can nod if you agree, that it feels like it's too much for us to, it's too soon and too much for us to try to do it, and that really there needs to be more guidance from somebody beyond what we're able to provide at this point. Does that sort of summarize where we're at, do you think? Okay. Athalyn?
However, when it gets to a point where there's more structure, I think we would all love to have a voice in the process at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the recommendation for the RFP might be to advise the Council for Human Services on how to accomplish the goals set forth in Rachel's summary to us tonight. Okay. All right. Great. I was promised an hour. I don't think we're going to. Can you guys stay a little bit longer, or does anyone have to go right at 8 o'clock? Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is Dorothy Hertz. She's the chairman of the Contract Review Committee, and she was unable to join us tonight, but she said she would like to provide us with her phone number and email to contact her about CRC. She feels it's better explained one-on-one anyway, and would love to meet the CHS members individually, whether on the phone or socially distanced in person. So I guess maybe the internet is our friend tonight.
Not working.
Yeah, so what we'll do, would you guys, I would love also for everybody to share with Taylor cell phone numbers, so that I will share mine. Obviously we cannot talk in group text, but if somebody can't make a meeting, or sometimes text is just the best way to reach me at the last minute around meeting organization and stuff like that too. So I'll just ask you guys to give Taylor your cell numbers. If I don't, some of you I have, most of you I have already. Everybody here, I think I do already. So anyway, all right, is there any, that's it, right? So that's it. Does anyone have anything else they want to bring up or talk about tonight? And next meeting is Labor Day. Our first Monday idea is great until it's Labor Day weekend. So, so can you guys do this? What was the alternative? The 14th was available? September 14th, Monday?
Yep.
Does that
Yeah,
for you?
works for me.
Okay, so we'll switch September's meeting to the 14th. And I think what we'll do at that meeting is we'll spend some time talking about what is the mission of CHS outside of these things that we've been asked to look at tonight. But what was CHS before racial equity became a big, before COVID, before all of that? What did it do before? And what do we envision? What do we think we want to do? And what initiatives do we want to take as a group moving forward? So I think that'll be the focus of our agenda at our next meeting. And if there's anything else anyone wants to add to the agenda next meeting, you're welcome to reach out to me or Taylor and make suggestions for the agenda. And at this point, if unless anyone has anything to add, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, by roll call vote, Claudia? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, Athalyn,
Yes.
Sindy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So hopefully we will have better internet and my brain will be better next time. And thanks you guys. I already love the input that we're getting from you guys.
Thanks.
So I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Okay.
Have a good night.
Have a
Good
good night.
night.
See you in
Bye.
6 weeks. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.